All right, so welcome everybody. My name is Andrew Harris. I'm the VP of Sales for Asia Pacific for InEight, and I consider myself to be really fortunate in this role. I get the opportunity to work with so many amazing people in our organisation, but also in our customers' organisations as well. It's a really exciting industry that we are all a part of, and it's great to be able to witness the impact that technology can have on our customers, and as a leader of people on our own teams as well. We've got a lot of great panel members today, but I just want to take you through a little bit of housekeeping. So ensure that you're saying hello to us in the chat window that you'll see. Rose has already put a little welcome to everyone in there. Please feel free to ensure that you're asking questions throughout. We've got a bunch of questions that we've pre-developed for this session. But we'll also be looking at the live questions as well. Any that we don't get to today, we will certainly endeavour to come back to each of you who have asked those questions. And lastly but not least, sit back, relax and enjoy, and make sure that you can provide us as much feedback as you can throughout the session. So who have we got with us today? We're really excited to have a gentleman by the name of Phil Jones, who is the Project Director for D4C, Delivering for Customers, who are running a 10-year program of work with Sydney Water. Welcome, Phil, and Phil will tell you a little bit more about his role and himself in a minute. We also have Elsa Yim, who is the Energy Business Services Leader for Energy Australia, part of a dynamic industry that's undergoing an enormous amount of change, which is providing great opportunity, and Elsa will tell us a little bit about her background in a moment. And Ian Watt, Regional Sales Director for InEight. I'm very fortunate to be working alongside Ian, servicing some of our great customers in region. So welcome to you all. So Phil, we might just start with you to tell the group a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yes, I'm Phil Jones. I'm Project Director for Delivering for Customers, which we have a 10-year contract with Sydney Water to deliver maintenance, FM and project delivery across their southern region. We're a joint venture between Lendlease, John Holland, Comdane and WSP. And we've just started our program, been going about 18 months, and working through this journey of enhancing or adding value through IT and software or systems. A bit of my background, I've run these integrated contracts across a number of industries, both in Australia and the UK, and used technology over that period of time to try and enhance the service delivery to the client, but also the customer as the end user of whatever that service might be.
Fantastic, Phil. Thanks. Great to have you on. Elsa.
Thanks, Andrew. Afternoon, everybody. I currently head up the project services team within Energy Australia. I've had about 25 years experience in projects, all different types of projects, transformation, technology, and of course, most recently, the construction projects. Really exciting time in the energy sector at the moment. So with the new agenda and the renewable transformation, so we've just announced the funding of the Tallawarra B gas turbine project and the Juralang battery. So more the relevant for the technology that we're choosing.
Fantastic. Welcome, Elsa, and such a dynamic time in your sector. It's exciting to be on a bit of a journey with you guys. And Ian, for yourself, mate.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ian Watt, and I work for InEight, and I've been here for probably 7 years or a bit more, and been in the project controls space for, well, let's say decades. Through that time, I've been helping organisations adopt technology in one way or another to improve their business outcomes and their business performance. So very pleased to be spending time with everyone this afternoon.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ian. So to kick us all off, guys, I think what's been really prevalent, and McKinsey and other organisations have reported that in the capital project sector and construction space that technology's been a bit of a laggard in that space. You know, agriculture and fisheries seem to have the jump on all the global reports around technology adoption within the sector. And I think sometimes that's a bit unfair when we've got people like yourselves who have such a dynamic and engaging approach to the adoption of technology and the value that it can bring. So I want to kick us off with a bit of a poll, and to the audience, you'll be able to click a voting button on the screen. So really over to the panel while we run the poll of, could we actually be doing more to invest in technology and create even greater value than we do today? So Phil, I'll let you lead off, and then maybe get some thoughts from Elsa and Ian as the poll runs.
Yeah, I think certainly we certainly can be investing in more in technology to get greater value. We've started our program off 10-year journey and made a huge investment in technology to try and start that journey on the basis that when we get to 10 years, whatever we invest in now will be very much so out of date. But it's important that you continue to invest over time and continue to keep those systems or processes or whatever technology you're using up to date to ensure that you keep up with the times. Our people will demand that we are continue to invest in technology and up to date. Certainly the younger generations you bring into our teams, and our clients and our customers expected to be able to be ahead of technology and use what they need to make sure they're getting the service they desire.
Yeah, and really interesting that the customer demands are really starting to drive some of that change. And then if you look at the youth coming through an education perspective, there's a really interesting surge in that space. Elsa, how's that impacting life at Energy Australia for you guys?
Yeah, I think technology is certainly really important. I think we all get so busy delivering what we need to deliver and forget about things that could make our lives so much easier. So I think it's really important to take stock and look at how far technology has come to actually help us with delivery. So I think, yeah, definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, fantastic. And Ian, from your life of connecting with multiple customers on a regular basis, what about the investment in technology? Whether it's in the capital project sector or in our own world in the sales organisation.
The benefit of technology goes back to the Industrial Revolution. The building of the pyramids. There's no doubt that innovation and the adoption of technology improves society. And so there's no reason why we should stop that trajectory. And in fact, the more investment that you make in new adaptive technologies, it pays disproportionate dividends. And there's multiple studies that demonstrate that. And that's certainly what we're seeing amongst our customers and what I'm seeing across the industry.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think, so an overwhelming yes. We had just over half our participants register in the survey, and everyone said absolutely we could continue to invest more in technology to create even greater value. So I think everyone's on the same page, which is always good to see, and probably as expected. I don't think anyone wants to go backwards, that's for sure. So to sort of draw that out a little bit and probably explore a little bit further, might start with yourself again, Phil. What does technology mean for D4C, and how is that being leveraged to deliver greater performance across your respective programs of work?
So we've taken a decisive approach in terms of technology to really look at enabling our people through technology. So we've been in a very fortunate position. We're about 350 people strong today, and we'll be 500 people by Christmas in this contract we've got with Sydney Water. And we've had the luxury of being able to handpick that 350 to 500 people over the last 18 months. And they're all been picked because of their capabilities. And we want technology to be able to support them rather than having to do what they need to do to make the technology give the answer, if that makes sense. So it's about helping them, enabling those people to do what they need to do. And we've done that through a number of different ways. Rather than just picking one technology solution, we've actually picked a whole raft of stuff that's best for process or best for part of the business, and bolted that together and allowed that to work together to really give us some value. Because we know, as I said before, we know that our people, the new people into our business, expect technology to be there. They expect them to be able to do their job on a mobile phone or a tablet, and in an engaged way that's not them just doing something because the system says they have to do it. They do it because they want to see it adds value to their delivery on their job every day. So it's about streamlining that process, streamlining their way of working.
Yeah, exactly. Streamlining and adding value, I think, is a key takeaway there. And also, I know when we were talking over the last few days that really looking at how technology helps helps to support delivery excellence for Energy Australia. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, delivery excellence is obviously very important for a project, delivering what we set out we will do. And I guess what comes with that is the 101s with project management. We've got two distinct groups of people in Energy Australia, major projects. One group are major projects professionals. So these are project managers that are project managers by profession, and they do this every day. And we've got another group of users who are site-based. They are foremost engineers and second-headed project managers. So what we're looking for is something that's actually really easy for everybody and add value, because people are so busy doing their day job, they don't really have time to learn a new tool or try to project something on, different Excel spreadsheets, different tools, different ERP systems. It just becomes a massive overhead, and we lose sight of what's important, which is to deliver the project, really. So what we're looking for, and we're on a journey here with InEight, is to look for a tool that can provide us the consistency, early warning signs, and just make delivery projects a lot easier for people, and that people will use it because it's easy.
Yeah, and it's easy to use, but then you're obviously talking about just accessibility to information and driving consistency throughout, the organisation across, so many different touch points. And Phil, just circling back to you, quite quickly, delivering for customers is effectively a startup that's, hit 150 people in 18 months and going to 500 within 2 years of inception. So, so many moving feasts with that, and being able to contain that and encourage that's obviously, a great focus.
Absolutely, and it's about not creating work for people just for the sake of fueling a system and giving us an answer. It's allowing people on the coalface front line to actually do their job and using tools that support them to do their job, and then using that as information, and the data contains information, so we can actually learn and be more intelligent about what we do. It's about supporting everyone across their business with what's across their role, to support the business more centrally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fantastic. And
Andrew, this has brought a thought to my mind. In our day-to-day life, we thought that 18 months ago we were really, really busy, and we were really, really effective, and we were 100% working all day, every day. Who knew that we had 10 or 15% performance lying dormant in us? But now the use of Teams and not having to run from one building to another or one city to another to find a meeting room, to all that time in between, and now we're going from one meeting to another meeting to another meeting. This is a good example of the use of that technology, and whether it be Teams or WebEx or any of those other platforms, the way that we've now had to adapt to the new way of working by way of leveraging technology has extracted, I reckon it's 10 or 15% of productivity that we had lurking, trapped within us, and we've now brought that to bear. We never knew that productivity was there laying dormant, but technology has brought that out in us, and that's an example that I've found in my daily life, and it's been very valuable.
And I think part of our collective roles is being able to enable our teams, enable our people and connect our people to not only each other but to the information that they need access to do their day jobs. And I think with that, Ian, there's a sense of expectation that now comes with that. It all, in my experience, access to great new technology creates a normal, and the expectations continue to lift. And maybe I'll start again, with you, Phil, on this one around, expectations of technology and how you've seen that change, over recent years, and maybe how you see it continue to change.
Yeah, I've certainly seen a massive difference and change. I think a couple of points on this one. One is we've just fitted out a new office for our team as a head office for our contract. That was part of the start of the program, and we didn't open that till January this year. So we went through COVID with people mobilising and starting a contract working from home. But we've actually changed the way we designed that office, and we did that right just about 6 weeks before we were due to start fit out, to allow this new normal, as Ian talked about, in terms of the new way of working. Because as traditional office space, you can still make it work, but it's very hard to make that into this technology-enabled world work. And we've then also worked with Sydney Water and put together a 10-year maturity journey map around digital engineering, as they call it. But it's about using technology. And that's really about saying, in 10 years' time, an engineer, supervisor, crew on the ground will not want a paper drawing given to them which tells them how to build a job. They will absolutely demand, as that generation, that it's electronic, it's shown, it's a 3D model, they can go around, play with it, they can take their measurements, do what they want on an iPad or a tablet or whatever it is on the field. So we've looked at that 10-year journey across all of our technology platforms to say, how do we go from today to make the technology get there, but actually change the culture of people? Because the biggest challenge with all of this is the change management process in terms of people, so that they can actually adopt that system and make it work at that point in time and actually get the value from that. And that change management piece is probably a bigger piece than the systems piece. The technology, we all see, as you talked about, other industries are well ahead of us in terms of taking up technology. It's how we change the mindset of our people and work with them to get to that stage, bringing in the younger generations, which tend to be more sort of forward thinking in this space, and more demanding in that space, but bringing along the rest of the workforce who have the skills and experience to make sure we can still deliver a great product, but more efficiently and more effectively.
Absolutely. And I think it's about trusting in the technology as well. I think, as everyone's sort of a little bit resistant to change, and being able to trust what that new technology will deliver for you, because you're the one that's still accountable for the outcome at the end of the day. So ensuring you've got faith in that system. And look, I'd like to throw to you as well, Elsa, because I know, with Energy Australia in such a dynamically changing as a energy generator as one part of your business versus retail, the huge change coming through the energy sector. What is, and your experience, what does that expectation on technology mean to you guys?
Well, I guess with more work going on and with major projects being funded, it's really important that we do things in a consistent way so that we can actually leverage each project as we go, big or small. So by being able to harness each of the in-flight projects and look at how we can improve, the insights is really important. So it's about unlocking what could be quite disparate, 2-3 years ago, to how can we keep on improving going forward. So that's one of the things that's really important to us. And also allowing the visibility. So the visibility of how the project is progressing, what major challenges we have, all the way from, a junior engineer to the sponsor. They should all be able to see all this information really clearly so that people can make decisive action about what needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really encouraging to be able to see what's possible as well, which is great. And I think that future state is going to hold us in good stead. Ian, thinking about the same thing from what you see in market, but even in your role, having access to information and pulling together disparate information, does empower you to make decisions and prioritize. I think you put yourself on mute.
Sorry, puppy dogs were barking. Home office problems.
One of the technologies of working from home is the duck.
Absolutely. My apologies. So what we're seeing now today is the ability to leverage connected information. In the past, you had great systems and disparagingly they call them point solutions, but you used to have technologies that were fit for purpose for an individual purpose. Now what we've got the opportunity to do is connect that information in a point in time and then turn it into almost a heads-up display. And what that brings with it, if you trust those connections and if those connections are trustworthy, it gives you the opportunity to manage by exception. Rather than furiously managing everything, you can now trust the system. And that sounds a bit scary, I know. That's an organisational change management scenario. But if you can then trust the system, like the pilots do in an A380 or a big, plane, remember them? We used to fly on them. They get told, they get a warning if one of 10,000 sensors on the plane goes out of tolerance. Well, that's where we are now in our capability with the capital projects world. And I think that's that ability to now trust in the technology is something that we're going to have to now adapt to and leverage.
Ian, I just wanted to comment on the trust component with technology. And another example that I may use is the driverless car. So that's
Yes.
certainly a
I'll never
technology
get in
that,
one. Never,
yeah,
ever, 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 ever.
and it just showcases technology is there and it's happening, it's changing all the time, but
It
it's about
is.
building that trust so that we can jump in there and our lives will be so much easier once we trust it. But
It's a
time
great
will
example, but I'm never going to trust it.
Yeah.
Driverless cars are up there with jumping out of a plane or going, diving with sharks. No chance.
You might be stuck at home in the future, Ian.
I guess
Find a way to get around.
But then at least I'll have my drones to deliver me pizzas.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And look, a lot of the conversation at the moment has been around sort of change management, which is really around people. And I know, Elsa, from yourself, that people, process, tool / solution is a constant thought for yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about your approach in that space?
Yeah, so I think it's a really important triangle that we have there, people, process, and tool. You can implement a amazing tool, but if it's not supported by the right people knowing how to use it, which is the right process, really you're not going to harness the outcome that you need. And obviously, we talked about the trust. People need to know how to use the tool and to trust the tool so that they can get the most out of it. Otherwise, it just all becomes a hindrance. And that's really important to remember. We don't want to turn something amazing into something that becomes a hindrance to what people need to do every day.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And we were talking internally this morning about, in putting in some great solutions, but then also ensuring that as part of that education process, you're helping people to understand what to do with the information once a system presents it to you. And, people are used to having, to Ian's point, some siloed solutions and referring to Excel. And now, Phil, you guys are probably presenting a dashboard to people. And but then how do we encourage those people to interpret the data and then act on the data so it is helpful to them?
And that's exactly the culture change piece I was talking about before. It's that we're starting to get there in terms of providing dashboards and providing that real live data. But it is about trust. It's about people understanding that journey. But there's also an element of consistency as well. It's about keeping the data structures and the terminology we use really consistent to allow people to understand that. And we talked before earlier in the week about the challenges we have with different asset owners specifically having a different terminology for what actually is a similar process. I mean, I've come from a roads background into a water environment. It's still a linear asset. It's still very similar. And we have a very different, we have to learn a whole new book full of 3-letter acronyms to come and do the job, which is all part of the job of any industry you work into. But it's how do we work with industry and work with asset owners specifically to say, let's try and put a bit of consistency in that, because that allows technology to advance more quickly and to be better value, because we're not having to bespoke everything at the start to make it work in that environment. So there's a big journey there to go on. That's about change management. That's about culture change. But it's how we get that standardization of a project delivery, whether it's a road, an electrical asset, or a water asset, doesn't really matter, or anything else. It's a very similar process, and getting some standardization there would really help industry to go through and add more value out of technology.
Yeah,
and I think
to
you go, Elsa. No, you go.
add to Phil's point, it's actually about having a technology that people want to use, not because we're making them use it. So it's about people feeling like there's actually real value in doing that. And at Energy Australia, what we try to do is, with the initial setup process, we've been doing a lot of the setup for the team that will be new to this tool and showing them some of the really amazing functionalities that people just want to jump on board. It's not like we're pushing it, but when you have an amazing tool, people just naturally use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that people theme as well, we were talking about previously around things like skills shortages, and with exceeding these shrunken migration and things like that, and immigration for skilled labour. And we're seeing obviously a skills shortage in regions. Having that consistency in terminology, that embracing of technology to be able to do more with less and make our teams more effective, and effectives first, because you can be really efficient at being ineffective. So make sure that they're really effective, I think, is is a great approach as well. And I know between Phil and Elsa, you've both sort of talked a little bit about that skills shortage and how technology might be able to help with that. So with that, we've actually got, and I encourage the audience to get their questions going. We have got a question in the chat from Nathan Dunn. So kudos, Nathan, for being the first to lob one in for us, which is fantastic. And it's, are the unions open to actually embracing technology on site? I probably don't want us to get into a union discussion, but it's probably more of a discussion around, what about on-site technology is actually going to help everyone collectively and take it from that, potentially a big brother is watching kind of approach to an efficiency and effectiveness approach. So maybe Elsa, whether you've got a view on site-based technology.
Yeah, well, I guess to answer that question, union or not, when we roll out something new, it's really important that we give people the adequate training, that they're not just lumped with something that's coming out cold. So it's really important that we obviously train the people, equip the right people to use the right tool, and that we're not expecting people to use something that they just are uncomfortable. And when there are areas of support, that there's adequate support. So I think if we have all those foundations right, then I don't see any reason why there will be an issue with the adoption. And obviously, it's really important to check in with the team whether the change is actually making a positive difference. If it's negative difference, we are always on this journey to open to change, which is really important. Just because we've rolled out something one way doesn't mean it has to stay. It will only stay if it makes a positive difference.
Agreed. I was going to say, in our industry, in our business, we've rolled out technology to the front line to workforce on the site and been very heavily embraced. I think, as you say, as long as you train people, you equip them to use it, and it's value-adding to their role, a lot of those fears and worries about Big Brother watching you disappear very quickly. And people want to use that stuff and want to take ownership and value from it and make it work well.
Yeah, and I think it's also about empowering people to do great work. And Ian, you had an interesting sort of look at things earlier in the week around the staff to craft sort of concept and where technology can enable that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that we found by organisations adopting technology, and it just happens to be one of our technologies, but highly skilled people who've been to university and supervisors are expensive commodities, and they're called staff. People who are out on site putting in place reinforcement or changing a pump, or they're called craft. And as an organisation, you want to try and optimise your staff to craft ratio. You want to try and have the least amount of supervision required to get a high quality job outcome. So you want a small amount of staff and a large amount of craft delivering a high quality outcome. And what we've seen is the ability to adopt some technologies that package up work, send it out to the field very efficiently with minimal miscommunication and maximum information and specificity being sent out to the field. People in the field picking that up on mobile devices, an iPad or such like, knowing exactly where they need to go, because they can go to Google Maps, bang, right here, follow that. Having the information at their fingertips, this is the exact pump, because I've got a picture of the pump serial number plate. Wow, okay, perfect, I need to replace 2 flanges, done, perfect. We've seen craft to staff ratios improve by 50% and productivity, primarily because of reduction in rework, improved by 20% just by the adoption of those field technologies. So we've seen real life examples of that being brought to effect in the field.
Yeah, and I think in that vein, those the highly skilled craft workers as well, because we've got exceedingly intelligent people out on site installing so many different things across every discipline. that it's actually enabling them. So you think about, coming off shift, for example, in your example, Ian, around the field stuff, and wanting to log out at the end of the day,
Yep.
and being able to do that quickly, not having to sit there and complete paperwork. You finished your job, you're home with your family, you know what you're ready to do the next day, and you walk back in and I guess the InEight, wrong shirt side. The InEight is, being able to get more done in 8 hours and making it innate to people's, day jobs. And I think that's where both, the old adage of white collar and blue collar productivity, equally skilled in different disciplines, is
exactly
a great return on that investment.
Yeah, 100%, Andrew. And it's about across the board productivity and capability enhancement. It's about freeing up the hack work and reducing the miscommunication, and that's where the productivity comes from.
But just to say, I'm going to an experience we talked about earlier in the week, but the experience I had is these things only work when you create something that people want to use. The example I've got is in a previous role, we mobilised a road maintenance contract, and we had 80 blue-collar road workers who were out on the road in the middle of the night filling potholes and doing all sorts of stuff. And we did an analysis. We needed to give them Android phones, the particular piece of software we're using at the time. And I got a lot of kickback from my team that they wanted to give them these ruggerized, really awful bloody phones, quite frankly, these awful things. And we didn't do that. We went and bought the latest Samsung Galaxy, whatever it was, phone, and gave it to them. No cover, no nothing at all, just literally handed them a phone in a box. And after 12 months, we only had one broken. And feedback from our crew was, the reason that was is because it's something they wanted. They wanted that technology. They want something they could use and they could keep it as part of their life, rather than having to be foisted on something. It goes back to my point about enabling people. You give them something they want, they'll look after it and they'll use it. Give them something that's just pushed on them because you tell them they have to use it. It's always going to be a challenge. It's always going to be an issue, and it's going to be really hard to convince them to make that work. And you don't get the data. And as a business, you don't get the intelligence. You don't get the understanding that you want out of it. It becomes a real drag. Whereas enabling people, in supporting them to do their role, is what's absolutely going to give them get you the value as a business.
Absolutely, and value, and the time to value too, because you get that adoption rate becomes so much faster. So you're seeing that impact the business in a much shorter fashion.
Yeah.
So, thinking about Energy Australia, investing in we've talked about investing in technology, and I think the bit that we're all sort of circling around is investing in the right technology. So what does that look like for the team at EA?
Yeah, and I think that investing in the right technology is very important. So we need to find something that's fit for purpose. And on that note, if a really simple Excel or Notepad can do the job, maybe that is the best tool. But on the other hand, if it's something more complex, so for example, like building a Tallawarra gas turbine station, you obviously need the right tool to manage the complexity of the project. So we have embarked on a journey. What we wanted to do was to drive consistency across the energy projects portfolio, and also we wanted to get some insights, really early insights. So what we want to unlock is really, we want experts to be able to use time and use that time to on problem solving, things that they're really good at, not at administration, not at trying to cross collateralize spreadsheets, etc., or mucking around with lots of different systems. So we're on that journey to consolidate that into a common tool. And with a common tool, with the less experienced project professionals, so for example, the engineers that don't do project management every day, it also serves as a framework for them, that it reminds them, look, at a certain point in the project life cycle, there are certain deliverables, and remember to update certain things, and it just becomes apparent and part of their everyday work. So that's where we're at. We're still quite initial in the journey. So if we speak in 12 months' time or 24 months' time, it will be a lot different.
Yeah, I think the framework as a reference point is a really interesting topic. And Phil, with D4C, being able to shape its own path, not really inheriting any history. What is sort of that framework, and how have you guys come together to sort of build out a framework for reference for either new starters or or inconsistent users of I guess some of the tools that you use?
I think we start from process rather than from system. So really understanding what people's roles are, what they need to do, and then how do you get the system to support them doing their role. So that really the framework we've worked through is we've driven a process for our organisation for everything we want to do in the organisation, and not down at granular levels or relatively high level. And we train people in the process. We train people how they're going to deliver and how they're going to use, how they're going to provide their service. But then where does the systems fit in to help them to do that, to make their life easier, add value to their role? So the sort of the drive to use the system is based on the fact they need to do what they need to do to their role.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. And we're on a bit of that journey ourselves. And Ian, you could probably attest to that in terms of the operating framework we've got as even our own sales team.
I saw you reach for your pen when Elsa used the word framework.
Yep,
I've got to admit, I wrote it down as well. Because and I was thinking about this earlier today because, Andrew and I had a conversation earlier today where we discussed the business framework that we've put in place at InEight. And I was thinking, framework, it's like scaffolding. You put it around a building to not only protect you, but to give you something to build upon. And it's absolutely right. And it goes to the point that Henry has asked in the questions around organisational change management, business process re-engineering. It all blends together, and you need a framework, a basis of discussion, if you like, to define the direction in which you want to go, but also to give you some parameters within which to work. And to Elsa's comment, I encourage every organisation who is adopting, whether it be the XYZ company way, or whether it be, a set of objectives that you're trying to achieve within a time frame, try and come up with a framework that you can work to so that you know what good looks like and what finished is.
Yeah, good point. Link what good looks like and ensuring that good is repeatable, I think, is good. But also kind of circle back and continuously improve the operating framework.
It's not one and done. It's an incremental thing. It's like building an asset and then going through iterative operations and maintenance. I was taught very early on in my career that the project life cycle isn't just concept to delivery. That might be 3 or 4 years, but most of these big capital assets go on for 50 or 60. Whether it's an electricity network or whether it's a water facility, they might, or whether it's a railway, they might live for 50, 80, 100 years. So that first 5 years of creating the asset is not the operational life cycle of the asset. It goes through these maintenance, enhancement, operational iterations. So yeah, you're 100% right, Andrew. Those iterations are important.
Just to add to that, I think looking at Henry's question, I think it's a really interesting question about how you do that change management piece. And I think I've done this a number of times trying to implement systems in new businesses, effectively startup business like we are now. And every time it has a teething problem. And the teething problems often come between getting the culture to say we need to build a process and get a system to manage that process, and trying to engage the wider team in that, building the process and making that work, and having the key people in the business who are driving the vision around whatever system you might be using. And that balance between those two groups often becomes a real challenge, because you either get the business runs off doing what it needs to do and moves away from the system that's maybe been adopted, or the system owner runs off trying to make the business processes work for what the system says. And I think I've never seen that balance work well. To be fair, I think it's something that we as an industry have to learn. But that process around how we do that is really important to make sure that you get both those things come together, that the process works with the system and the system supports the process.
So I also chuckle there. So you've got some experience in that space.
Yeah, completely concur. I guess the 3 insights that I would share is, number one is I have been involved in projects that spent years in process reengineering, the whole process, and by the time you finish re-engineering the process, the processes have already changed, the business have moved forward. So what we're doing now, one of the key insights is we do it in bite-sized chunks. We focus on a couple of fundamental modules first, get those right, and then keep building on it. So that's what we're doing now. So that's insight number one. Insight number two is to try on a pilot group, on a small group of people, test out your process, test out your systems, test out the capabilities, and really back to that triangle to see, whether there's anything you need to tweak before you roll it out to the mass. And lastly, the user experience, the first time they use the system is so important, is having that support. And we've driven down 3 hours to site, set with them, so that's made a whole world of difference, that when they actually have an issue, they can turn around and ask, what should I do next, rather than going, oh, this system's too hard to use, I'll just not bother. So,
and also I was going to say that bit about keeping people engaged in the systems or whatever technology you put out there is so critical. We've had a challenge in our business recently where we sold a dream, for want of a better term, that the systems would do everything, make you a cup of tea and do the whole lot for you, and clearly that's never going to happen. But that was a bit about trying to engage people, and we probably went too far. With the lesson we learned, we probably went a bit too far in terms of explaining to people what the system could do. So therefore, people never get satisfied the system's ever good, for a better term, they ever meet the needs. So making sure you're managing that expectation about what the system's going to do, how it's going to do it, how the technology is going to support you, and what you're still going to need to do to add value in your role is really key part to that culture journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my observations has been, and even though I work in software, my wife always jokes about I know nothing about things like Instagram and how they all work, because I don't naturally go and find all the things inside the applications. And I think if we look at our general users of applications, they're busy doing their thing. They're not sitting in there pressing every button just to see what it does and learning their way. So that first use, and step me through it. It is a bit of hold my hand without doing their job for them, but that first taste and creating the desire for them to, okay, well, I've got a little bit now, I can. It's getting that encouragement for them to continue to use the system and checkpoints. And I think certainly around consistency and enforcement's too strong a word, but certainly guiding people through those processes and the frameworks and promoting the successes when people see the software or the framework work really well for them, and actually getting that groundswell of support. And also that's probably a little bit where your phase one user groups come into it to create that sort of positivity as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And how do you find those people typically? I mean, I'm fascinated. You guys have got fairly big teams, big programs of work. Maybe also, what do you look for in those first tranche of people, or whether it's around attitude or skills that you're looking for in that?
Yeah, we actually try to pick a really diverse group and people with different appetite for change. We want obviously the ones that are forefront in the bleeding edge, leading edge, that wants to try everything that's new. But we also want to get people involved that are, they're not wanting a change, and they're happy with what they're doing, because it's important that we actually see things from all different angles, and hopefully turn dissenters into advocates. So the change process just becomes so much easier. Or once we find out what the issues are, then we can actually actively work on that. Because if you have a group of people that are already on board, then it's not giving us any other information.
Yeah, and Phil, from your perspective as well, we've had a few conversations around change and people and adoption and promotion. How have you sort of tackled that with
I agree with what Elsa said, but I think for me, there's an additional step is finding the true leaders in your business, and they're not necessarily that by hierarchy. They'll be just wherever they come in the business, and bringing them along the journey of being adopters. And certainly when you get down into the frontline crew delivering the work, it is about taking the people that people listen to, who are the leaders of those people, bringing them on the journey, and they will very quickly continue to add value and bring the rest of the team along. They're the ones that really will make a difference in terms of that adoption. It's those people there that people trust, that they want to get on. They're the ones that will really make the difference in terms of adoption. But along with that, you'll never get someone to adopt something that's not going to make their life better.
Yeah.
You'll spend your life trying to bash people over the head to do stuff that if it doesn't really add value to their particular role. And that's the key, is adding value to their particular role, not just to the business. I'll give you an example with scheduling. If we're putting schedules together for reporting purposes that a project manager's not using to run his project, what you get will be bad information in, so whatever you reported will be rubbish. You've got to make sure that the process flows right through. And if you do that, you tend to not have to worry too much about the adoption, because people like to use a tool that adds value to their role.
Yeah. No, very, very good point. Henry's on fire in the back half of the webinar today. Another one through from Henry, which was talking about, different systems and different roles. And obviously solutions operate as part of an ecosystem. So Henry's real question is really around, how do you guys look at tackling integrations between maybe line of business applications and then general business applications, finance, HR versus project controls? Maybe just a quick sort of viewpoint on how tightly or loosely you think those things should be coupled.
I can give you a bit of a view about change over time. I mean, I remember doing an implementation of a whole of business software probably 5 or 6 years ago, and we took the view of trying to find one system that could do as much as we could, the biggest scope, but it probably did things okay, not great. With the implementation this time, we've taken individual parts or processes in our business and found the best solution for that process, and then tried to integrate them. And some of the integrations need to be really, what we call IT integrations, really automated. Well, that stuff, some of them don't need to be that, but you need to make sure you understand what's important and spend the time and effort integrating those things. I think it comes back to the sort of fundamental point we're talking about, what's the value add in terms of technology. It is about really understanding what is the value add and adding and spending the money where the value is needed. We do seem to have an issue or perception in this industry that IT or systems or technology is a additional overhead cost that's not really adding value, or we try to limit it. I think there's a long way to go before we get to that limit, an awful long way to go before we get to that limit. But we still have to make sure, go back to my comment about selling the dream, it's not going to make your cup of tea for you. It's not going to do everything you want to do for it. So this integration sit in the same bucket. It's making sure you understand what's really adding value and going far enough without going to the stuff that's actually wasteful.
Yeah, great insight. And also, multi-industry background, and no doubt systems integration's been a hot topic in plenty of those, I'm sure.
Yes, well, Henry sounds like he's done one of these before.
Henry has done one of these before.
This is not his first rodeo.
I would say the principle that we use is very conscious of the source of truth, where the data should always lie, that you're not duplicating data. And also integration, we try to keep the ERP, the really large systems, as vanilla as possible, because they are complex and they are high cost to change. And we often look at, okay, if we don't want to change those systems, what can we do? And there's many other options out there, that we've come up with. And I remember looking at a quote of doing one of these integrations, and it equates to hiring like 5 people full time for many years. So you really need to look at the value of each integration, whether we're actually solving for the problem that we need to.
Avoid gold plating at all costs. You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. If you look at it as almost an onion from the inside out, most organisations have their finance system at the core, so that's the one you want to customise the least.
That's right.
Absolutely
agree with your strategy, Elsa.
Yeah, fantastic. And guys, look, we're blowing through the hour. We've only got 10 minutes to go, so I want to try and grab a couple of extra questions that we've sort of talked about. At the end of the day, technology is meant to, help deliver excellence for your own customers, whether they're an external customer for you, Phil, like Sydney Water, or also your internal customers, which could be your plants or your project teams. What positive impact does technology have, or that you guys see technology having on your customers and the advantages that gives them? So maybe, Elsa, from an internal customer perspective might be a good lens.
Yeah, well, even external, obviously we sell energy to the mass market, and one of the key difference that uh, technology has been able to provide is our customer the ability to look at their energy usage. So they could potentially see, well, actually my aircon is using a lot of energy. I should dial back at certain times. So these are insights that you wouldn't be getting 10 years ago, and internal customer wise, when we're doing projects, again, similar insights, things that we can see cross portfolio trends that we may be able to do something more holistic about versus, very singular as to each project.
Yeah, great insight on that external, putting the power back into the hands of the consumer.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Phil, what about from your perspective?
Yeah, I think for us, we talk about the customer being the water rate payer. So sort of turns tough on at home is the customer, and the client being Sydney Water. And certainly from a technology into the client, it's really important that we're very transparent and open and clear, concise, accurate in what we do, and timely. And that really looks for us like getting data captured in the field at the front line of the coalface, whether that be the field being the office or field being out there on the ground where the project's being delivered, and being able to run that through very quickly to sort of simple but accurate information that's really needed by the client. And what that really provides is value for a customer, because if we know what we're going to do, we can talk to the customer about what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it, and the impacts on them, whether that be noise or coming in their gardens. And we go people's back gardens, digging up people's back gardens on a daily basis. Actually being able to talk to them, we're going to do this, it's coming on, we're going to come on Tuesday, we'll be there for 2 days, we'll be gone, this is what it will be. That data and understanding about how that flows is so critical to that, because of that inconvenience that the customer gets. And technology is the only way, when we're doing that across 50 or 60 sites at any one particular time across Sydney, is understanding how that all fits together. And technology, having the right technology is the only way to really get that to work effectively.
Yeah, fantastic insight. Ian, what about from your perspective? There's probably a little bit of an InEight lens there that you could put on that, and then one more that we'll close out on.
Well, yeah, and it's been a common theme through Phil and Elsa's discussion this afternoon that technology for technology's sake will never work. It's got to actually, rubber has got to meet the road, and it's got to make people's lives easier. It's got to become innate to what they do. And not be, you must enter your information into this system. It's got to be, I want to enter into this system because it frees me up from filling in 15 other spreadsheets that I used to have to fill in. It propagates through. So that's the big theme that I think I'm seeing from technology nowadays is that good technologies are adding value to people's lives.
Yeah, good wrap up there, Ian. And so in closing, guys, I've got probably a question for Elsa and Phil. Both of you, budget holders and need to go into the business and, ask for funding to do certain things. So what would be really your top reason that you would take to the SLT if you're asking them to invest in, new or more technology? What are the things that you think that SLT are looking for when you bring in technology investment to the table?
I can start from Chelsea. I think there are two real things that they're interested in. One is the value add, and the value add looks like better information, better understanding of our business, better understanding of what we do, so we can make smarter decisions. So really thinking about how does that bring our business forward? How do we understand what we're doing on a day-to-day basis more effectively, not necessarily more efficiently, but more effectively, so that we can make a decision today that will maybe prevent costs in the future, or maybe will add value in the future. But also the cost is always going to be a big part of that conversation. It always is a big part of every decision that you make in a business. But it's been able to weigh those two things up about cost and value. And some of the cost decision might just be, it will save cost. It will save cost out of our business. We might invest some money in technology, and the actual cost of doing the work will go down. That's quite a simple way of investing in technology. I think that's a way a lot of our organisations do it, is look at how to reduce costs through technology. But it's also the next stage, really, I feel, is being able to add value and invest, so add more cost into the business, but it adds further value to your service or product, whatever that might be in your world, to really provide a better service to our end customer, who might be a ratepayer of water, roads, electricity, whatever it might be.
Yeah, nice one, Phil. And Elsa, from your point of view?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Phil has said. So it's really about value and return, and the two lenses is strategic, or it helps with delivery excellence. And delivery excellence is actually meeting all our delivery promises, on cost, schedule, time, all those things. So if there is a business case that can ensure we do all that, then the value speaks for itself.
Yeah, fantastic, guys. So, look, that actually brings us to a close. We've just spent a fantastic hour together. A big thank you to Phil and Elsa for joining us today from a client perspective, and Ian, thank you as well for joining us today. Thank you very much to our participants. Some good questions there. Feel free to engage and put any more in the chat. And if you want to, if any of you want to go back and revisit the webinar, it will be hosted on inneight.com/webinars, and that's where you can find a heap of additional content that we've posted in other webinars as well. But we really appreciate all of you spending time with us today, and hope you got some insight out of it to take into your technology decisions moving forward. With that, we'll sign off and thank everyone and have a great afternoon.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.